So I want to do this vlog this week on opening up to something else within the art field. What is spiritual art? Hi friend, how you doing? Making it through another week. Welcome to my dream studio, my virtual dream studio. And here you have my color wheel that you see in my spiritual qualities of color on the wall. That's still available for download at KristinaWestArt.com/color guide. I'm so glad you made it through another week. We're here. Well, this week I found a crate of my small paintings, and I've been going through them and starting to get back into the business of getting my art on my websites so my collectors can acquire new pieces. I'm listing on a number of my sites, but you can find a number of paintings on Sunheart Boho Clothing, and you can also find it on Good Spirits Boutique on Etsy. And I think I've also listed it on Sunheart Boho Clothing on eBay. So there's 3 sites, and there's just a couple of pieces up so far because, of course, you've got to go through all the images. You've got to watermark everything. And as you can see here on this painting, this is actually one of the prints that's for sale. It's my Red Madonna. And I have a watermark of my name over the face of it because of AI scraping every artist's work and selling it without their permission. So, of course, the print comes without the watermark, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I've been going through a lot of my smaller pieces and getting them up for sale. I've sold art my whole life. I've been in galleries, I've sold through my own online stores. I've taught countless artists since I was 17 years old at Ventura College when I had work study and was the professor's assistant. One of the most wonderful things about working with beginners or artists is to introduce them to a spiritual practice involving their art work. What is spiritual art? And pretty much people define it any way they want. We see a lot of people online saying they can do transformational art and they can teach spiritual art. And if you look at their training, they have no training. And it's a buzzword to get you to take their launch or whatever they're doing. I'm actually a shamanic practitioner, and I've been working with shamans since the early 90s. And I've worked with countless individuals, groups, and community arts projects for many years, doing all kinds of art within the spiritual field. So let's talk about what spiritual art is and what it isn't, and what defines it. Some people might say that spiritual art is having a transformative experience within the making of the art. Some people would say that they research and do a lot of work constructing what they're going to paint, what they're going to make, if it's jewelry or a painting, a weaving. They meditate on it. They might do some giveaways and sacrifice something for it, is what we say in shamanic practice or in Wicca or in ceremonial magic, is building power. Spiritual work is a highly advanced practice of building your somatic physical body, your heart, and your mind to line up so that when you're doing the artwork, whatever it is, you know how to open, create, and close those doors. If you are an adept at making this sort of art or being able to use your inherent power to put that in the art so that the art has the capacity to heal somebody, that's actually a spiritual practice with art. Many people have discovered shamanism light, and they love creating a female, beautiful female, sometimes with a big mouth and deer horns, and they call it a shamanic art, and they create an entire business. I'm very well trained, and my cohorts, which most people you'll never see, are PhDs, and they've put in many long years in their training. So, what I want to do is open up the field of what real spiritual art is and maybe how you, if you're drawn to being a spiritual artist, or some of the art that you'd like to do actually is a spiritually oriented. What does that mean for you? Is it a different skill set? A whole range of what makes a spiritual artist and what is spiritual art. Very two different things. So, spiritual art that you'll see on Facebook, uh, and a spiritual artist or spiritual art, it usually means a very dreamy, goddessy female face with some mystical symbols or shaman or with deers or maybe a power animal, goddessy and sometimes sweet. And it's sort of mystical, dreamy, a little fairy, a look that many people copy from somebody like a real shamanic artist, Susan Seddon Boulay, whose work was based on deep, rich inner experiences. And then because so many people fell in love with her, myself included, that many people copy her or they copy someone who has created their own practice and they lift off of it because, of course, they want to be like that person and create that kind of art. But what happens is we get iterations of iterations of iterations of a spiritual artist that somebody likes, and it becomes what we call in the field, we call there's no there. It's spirit light. There's no there. It's just a pretty picture, sort of saccharine and dreamy and romantic that appeals to a lot of people. They want sweet, like it's like a little treat. But if you're really ill and you need somebody who's trained, who's can, with their hands and heart and will, put something into their images that has a healing quality, that saccharine art may not help you. It may give you a little lift. Oh, it's pretty, that's nice, but it's like a little dopamine hit that doesn't really work on a soul level. A shamanic practitioner or a spiritual healer or someone who is trained has the ability to put into their work, and the work does not have to be sweet. It can be extremely powerful. It can be raw. But sometimes that's what the viewer, the purchaser, the person who wants to collect that art needs in their soul. They need a gut punch that wakes up their somatic chakra body so that they can bear what's happening in their own life. That's a real different viewpoint on what makes spiritual art, right? Facebook or Instagram or TikTok spiritual artists, you can put a figure with a set of wings behind him and call it an angel. And it's a style of imagery that can be called spiritual art, but there's a vast difference between an imitation and real spiritual art that has the capacity to move the viewer in ways, for the most part, that are in the somatic nature that can change their heart and mind, metanoia. A trained shaman or a trained healer, different levels of being initiated into their practice. Spiritual art is not copying an image or another artist. The artist is actually in conversation with spiritual beings, a real conversation with spiritual beings. The spiritual beings of color, which I tried to cover in the 7-week vlogs on thought forms. And their art of a trained spiritual artist comes through vision, ritual, dream work, years of inner work, so that every brush stroke, every color choice is a transmission and it's not a decoration. So this kind of sacred or spiritual work carries medicine. It moves energy, it restores harmony, and it speaks directly to our soul. And that is art that is transformative. That is art that can heal the viewer. That is art that is a gift to have in your house. To have an artist who's trained to create a piece for you, and it can be anything. It can be a weaving, it can be a tea towel, it can be a coaster, it can be a painting, it can be clothing. But when they make it for you, their intention, which they have honed, like any trained doctor or a trained healer, a trained osteopath, they've got training. So that training can be channeled or directed with the intent to put that in the piece. So not all of my pieces are empowered. That would be the word for it, an empowered piece of art. And over the years, I've had advanced students who wanted to be trained in the shamanic arts. And shamanic arts is a buzzword. It's a keyword, which is most people recognize, but it's also it's spiritual art. It's a grounding in cross-cultural practices, a way of becoming human that's broader, wider, more visionary. And we're not talking about like the Psychic Institute in Berkeley. I'm sorry, but there were so many psychics around Berkeley doing unsolicited psychic readings that had absolutely no training whatsoever. And they were just projecting their own neurosis onto people they just met practicing being a psychic. What I'm talking about isn't that either as an artist. There's a real field, a real practice for becoming a spiritual artist. And I love pop art. I love having fun with art. In this vlog, I'll put some of my works in that you can see and see if you can tell the difference. But now I can do folk art and it may look sweet, but it's serious. It's got some serious healing energy put in it. And there's others that are light and humorous, and it's actually the humor is the healer. The humor in the painting or in the pop art is the healing because I'm considered a sacred clown by many indigenous people, and I carry that as medicine. So, humor and lightness, we need that as well. And we certainly need it now in this topsy-turvy world of greed, power over punishment, and revenge. So we have the lower chakra going wild right now, all the lower chakras in the system. And so I have been training artists, all kinds of artists, because you don't have to be a painter to work with me. And I've been doing that since the 90s. And that's sort of my private practice. And I have a Calendly link at the bottom of this vlog that we can have a half-hour session. And I have it at a hugely reduced price if you want to discuss what the training is and if you'd like to do it. Some people want to actually do this as a life path, especially women who are older or men who are older, and they want to get deeper. They realize they don't have all the time in the world. We're not 20 anymore, and they would really like to create a practice that's a deeper dive. So what that would mean is, as an artist, say that you don't have to do spiritual healing art every time. That isn't the point of being a spiritual artist. We have a life to live. We have to live in the world. We have to pay rent. We may have children. We may be divorced. We may be single. We may be moving. We may have this whole life of doing all kinds of things. So your spiritual practice, your intent to be a spiritual artist, you've got to get some training. If you actually want to help people, there's got to be training, and you have to have time to do that. So you choose times when you want to do a piece, an empowered piece. And what does that mean? Let's talk about real life scenarios. And what I did is I was making dolls for people, personal power dolls. And I'll show you some of them in this vlog. And people would contact me because they wanted to move forward in their life and they were feeling stuck. And I would create a full armature doll. And in those days, they were about $1,500 and they were about 25, maybe 30 inches high. But I do make healing dolls for people and ritual dolls to get them to help them transform, to let go of and move into a more authentic life. And you want to deepen it, not maybe for your everything that you do, but to be able to have a skill set that gives you something else within this art practice that's for the benefit of somebody else. I have been a seeker and a spiritual seeker my entire life. I've worked with shamans and I've done ceremonial magic. I've worked with all kinds of indigenous from all over the world. And I'm a dreamer, a true dreamer. So I get much information from my dreams. And I'm a precognitive dreamer, so I have glimpses of the future and can plant seeds based on those for goodness in the world. And that's also a skill set that I teach. And we all dream, and that's something that can come easy for many, many millions of people to start their own dream practice. And so I want to do this vlog this week on opening up to something else within the art field. If you Google sacred art, you're going to see people who do biblical images of the Bible. You'll bring up schools in Italy that do egg tempera painting icons. And this is beautiful, gorgeous, a very deep traditional arts. But what I'm talking about is we've moved on. We're 2025, and the world has evolved, and we need to meet the world where the world is. We need to meet humanity where the human beings are living now. And human beings need help. So if you are called in your heart to help people through your art, then contact me and we can have a Calendly link. We'll do a half hour and I have a whole list of questions I can ask you, and we can go further after that first consultation if you want to work with me. And we can work privately, or I'm going to be doing a membership for the training for a spiritual art practice or practitioners. There's nothing better or more exciting to develop your skill set to help somebody else. So many of us get a phone call in the middle of the night that this, that, or the other happened. And you can have a list in your mind of the things that you could do for that person because you've had the training, and you can make something for them, even on the fly, and give them something that is a talisman for them to hang on to in a time of crisis. There's many, many, many ways to help folks artistically or with our creative practice when you get some training under your belt. The more love you have for helping the world, the better spiritual artist you're going to be. Healing art does not have to look like religious art. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to be serious, and it doesn't have to be a human being. It can be abstract. It can be something you hold in your hand. It can be any number of things. And one of the things I'm going to teach is the shamanic journey, which everybody wants to be a shaman. I know it's so much fun. And the shamanic journey, even after many, many years, the shamanic journey as a teaching tool is what I taught in all my men and women's groups. Everybody learned the shamanic journey to get their own information. And you don't have to do it all the time, but you have to have this training to be able to empower something. I want to open this subject up of spiritual art, that it's much deeper than doing a pretty goddess face and having a quote transformative experience because we all dressed up in jingle jangle silky things and danced around our studio together. That's beautiful. That's sort of goddess 101. We've all done that. It goes far, far deeper, far richer, far more buried treasure, far more gifts to be realized, not for yourself, but for the world, in a training that is meant to work your soul so that you grow up in a certain way and become truly human so you can help others in the world. And that's what empowering a piece of art is. And I'll leave you with a story. I worked with Elliot Cowan, who's a plant spirit shaman. He lived in Santa Barbara. He also did the 3-year advanced training with Michael Harner at the Foundation of Shamanic Studies. And Michael was one of my main shamans. I worked with the Foundation of Shamanic Studies for 10 years or more. Well, Elliot did the 3-year advanced training as well. And he's crossed the threshold. He was a Jewish guy who fell in love with the Huichol Indians, the Huichol artists. And he went and studied with them, and they adopted him and trained him as a Huichol shaman. And if you don't know what Huichol art is, and I will put some in this short intro, it is magnificent. They use beeswax and colored beads, and they cover the sculpture with beeswax, and then with needles, they decorate so many things in the most beautiful thing. When I would go get a healing from Elliot, he would have all this Huichol art out. And in my training, I was always on road trips 2 to 4 times a year, sometimes 6, going to some fabulous retreat and getting training. And I said, Elliot, can I buy some of this and take it to my training and sell it to my shamanic friends? And he said, of course. Oh my God. So it was a feeding frenzy. When people knew by the second trip that I would have a Subaru filled with Huichol art, it sold out. I mean, I started selling from my trunk. People wanted it before I could even set up a little table somewhere. The getting into what sacred art is, I looked at some of the work at Elliot's and I said, Elliot, this is all beautiful work, but this necklace, this jewelry, and this piece, there's something different. There's power emanating from it. What's the difference? And he said, well spotted, Kristena. That woman is doing a 5-year initiation to become a sacred artist. And because I'm a trained shamanic practitioner, I've done ceremonial magic. I am a precognitive dreamer, a true dreamer, and an empath. I can feel into what is got power or not. It's got there. And that is the training that you'll get. You'll get a beginning to begin to ascertain what's actually living in the art and what is dead within the art. There's just no there. So there is a new path for you to consider is becoming a sacred artist and in my training. But if you want to get started, I'm actually working with people now, and the Calendly link will be in the bottom of this vlog. You can also do empowered art pieces for yourself and for your family, especially at this time. And one of the first things we're going to be doing is creating a personal power piece for ourselves to help us get us through this world in America. So welcome to the tribe, Kristena West Art in Healing Tribe. All right, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Let's get creative.